Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. This is Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, mothers. We have a lot of things to talk about tonight. I'm going to spend some time together looking at life through a biblical lens, trying to solve all the world's problems in 2 hours or less. The High Court, U.S. Supreme Court here in these United States, is planning to hear arguments on Tuesday of this week in our president's effort to block 2 sets of subpoenas for his financial records. They've been 3 years trying to find out what his net worth is. One batch filed by a trio of House committees, the other by Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance. If he prevails, future presidents' financial information will be shielded from public scrutiny. If he loses, he and all future presidents will have to reveal his financial records to the public. If I were to vote on this, I would vote that the High Court is going to split, but they will vote no. Republicans, conservatives in the High Court are the majority, and I don't think they want to get into this kind of situation. But we'll see. I mean, things happen, crazier things than this have happened. We're learning a lot of stuff about this coronavirus. I believe we're going to learn more before this is over. But apparently the number of people dying from coronavirus is being somewhat exaggerated. We're up over 70,000 now. But we're being told that funeral directors are filing death certificates almost universally, reporting the cause of death to be complications from coronavirus, regardless of what it is that brought the patient to death's door. And all of this skews the statistics somewhat. The majority of people dying from coronavirus are either older, have compromised immune systems, or congenital issues that are compromising their immune systems and consequently their ability to resist. Governors and mayors are instructing police officers to, quote, ticket people not wearing face masks, not adhering to social spacing laws. The problem here is as plain as the mask on your face. They have no legal authority to do so. At least one county sheriff out west is refusing. You do know that sheriffs are the only constitutionally structured law enforcement agency in the country. We elect sheriffs. All other police types are bureaucrats. They are established by local laws. They're answerable to mayors. Sheriffs don't work for mayors. There are people who will not surrender themselves to anyone other than a county sheriff. Were I to find myself in that sort of a pickle, I think I'd be among the crowd. You would read about me up on a mountain somewhere, hiding in the woods, waiting for the sheriff, or barricaded in my house. Not really, but, it's your dream. Kansas City, Missouri is now permitting religious gatherings. To be able to say that in these United States, that a city is now permitting people to gather in religious ways is totally contrary to our Constitution and all that we stand for. But there's a catch even to this. The churches are permitted to gather, but the church must maintain records of all attendees. Write down their names, their addresses when they come in the door. I got a question. When did my health become a matter of law? Well, the answer is when people started getting coronavirus. So what about the 80,000 who died from the flu 2 years ago? In New York City, police officers patrolled the parks to make certain people were distancing properly. One New Yorker remarked, "What is this, a military state now?" And the universal answer is yes. The NYPD has made 60 arrests, handed out 343 summonses, and that's just since March 16th. All related to social distancing issues, according to the Post. Other states are doing the same kind of thing. One county sheriff, I'm assuming there are more, is refusing to honor the mayor's desire that his deputies charge people with a crime. Now keep in mind, all of these arrests, all of these summonses, no matter who issues them, are unconstitutional. The U.S. Constitution gives us the right to peacefully assemble. Now, emergencies are emergencies, things change. But this is a bogus emergency. Did you know that since 2010, the CDC estimates that flu has resulted in between 140,000 and 960,000 hospitalizations every year? Check it out, cdc.gov. So far this flu season, which is going to end with May, 410,000 to 740,000 people have been hospitalized. Can you say slippery slope? A poll was conducted recently that revealed only 1/3 of Americans believe the government is telling the truth about coronavirus deaths. 2/3 of the Democrats think that number should be higher. 1/3 of the Republicans think that number should be lower. This is how political partisanship is dividing our country. And we only trust our own people to tell us the truth. Cliff Young, who's president of something called Ipsos, U.S. Public Affairs, said, quote, "How people are actually processing information and assigning credibility to this thing is 100% partisan," end of quote. The reality here is the available data suggests those who believe we're undercounting coronavirus deaths may be the ones who are right. Why? Well, because many deaths aren't officially attributed to coronavirus since not enough people have been tested. Preliminary evidence suggests it has in fact killed thousands more people than the official record indicates. And several hard-hit states have seen about 50% more deaths than normal over the past few weeks. That's according to the CDC data. And the New York Times reported that New York City's death rate is about 3 times higher than normal, if you can believe the New York Times. A Gallup poll out April 26 found that 44% of Republicans say they're ready to return to normal activities, compared to only 4% of Democrats. Also, there is apparently something called the Trust Barometer. It's a new data gatherer from a global public relations firm. It indicates trust in government has now surpassed trust in business in countries around the world. Is that significant? You tell me. China, India, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Canada all report increases in trust. South Korea, Germany, the United States, and the United Kingdom, all countries that have been severely impacted by the virus, have remained neutral. But the trust factor hasn't fallen. Only people in France and Japan report having less trust in their government today than they did a year ago. But we're being told that we don't trust our government. Have you heard of Joe Biden? He's running for president on a Democrat ticket. You might have missed him. He's been a little low-key of late. ProphecyNewsWatch.com reports that Biden tweeted, "Let's be clear. Transgender equality is the civil rights issue of our time. There's no room for compromise when it comes to basic human rights. This in January of 2020. Of course, this is nothing less than war on the rights of those who do not embrace radical transgender activism. And that means a war on those who hold to biblical ethics. A war on those who recognize only male and female genders. In short, it's a war on you and me. The Biden plan states, quote, Donald Trump and Mike Pence have spoken hate against LGBTQ plus individuals' safe harbor and rolled back critical protections for the LGBTQ plus community, end of quote. Put another way, if you affirm what the Bible says about homosexual practice and biological sex, and you oppose the LGBTQ plus indoctrination of your children, you're guilty of hate, and you will be punished by law. Not this year, maybe not in my lifetime. I'm old, but it's coming. One American News reported this past week that Judicial Watch revealed it has subpoenaed Google as the latest move in its investigation into Hillary Clinton's missing government emails. This watchdog group confirmed it served the subpoena against the tech giant Wednesday after receiving authorization by a D.C. federal court. That subpoena called on Google to produce all of Clinton's records from a company-owned account believed to contain the former Secretary of State's emails. You know, Google doesn't ever erase anything. Did you know that? Yeah. IT specialist Paul Combata from the Denver-based Platte River Networks used that Google account to transfer Clinton's emails from a laptop to a private network server and then used software to remove all traces of those records from the device. Specifically, the subpoena seeks access to all of Clinton's emails from her time at the State Department between 2009 and 2013. Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch said the federal court authorized the subpoena as it was, quote, tired of the State and Justice Department's gamemanship. They're playing ping pong. They're kicking it back and forth, around and about. The whole time we're not being able to see anything, or we're not getting anywhere. Suddenly somebody's decided, stop. I want the records. It's going to be interesting, especially since there are some people saying that when Joe Biden goes down in flames, maybe at the convention, it'll be Hillary they'll call on. That's going to be interesting. Quentin Lucas is mayor of Kansas City, Mississippi. He's requiring churches to submit a list of members and attendees along with their addresses and phone numbers. The purpose of this is to track and surveil people who may be violating the ban on large groups gathering. Can you say, Heil Hitler? Now, it's not an unusual thing. I mentioned to you earlier, in other places they're doing the same sorts of thing. But apparently several states are using Bluetooth to determine just who is in too close proximity to whom. And if you are found guilty, you could be ordered to quarantine. Ordered to quarantine. Lose your job. Stay home. Y'all can come down here to South Carolina if you get tired of this mess. Do you know how to define the word bigotry? Well, Corey Johnson thinks he can. He's a speaker of the New York City Council. And he declared, quote, "It is time for Samaritan's Purse to leave New York City," end of quote. Oh, by the way, they are leaving. They started this week, taking the tents down. Not because of Corey. He said, quote, "This group, which is led by the notoriously bigoted, hate-spewing Franklin Graham, came at a time when our city couldn't in good conscience turn away any offer of help. Well, that time has passed. As a city that values diversity and compassion for all, we cannot continue to allow a group with a track record of Samaritan's Purse to remain here when we are past the point they are needed. Hate has no place in our beautiful city. End of quote. Several other field hospitals in New York City that were assembled to treat COVID-19 patients will remain in place, according to WABC TV. Only the Samaritan's Purse Field Hospital is being permanently shut down. And it sounds like the speaker hates Samaritan Purse. Hate in New York City. Harsh word. We learned this week that President Trump's overall approval rating is now at about 49%. And that's from all respondents. That matches his all-time high from back in mid-March. Trump's approval rating surged 6 points since the last Gallup Presidential Job Approval Survey just 2 weeks ago. That indicated 47% who disapproved of Trump. The poll found that 93% of Republicans approve of the job the president's been doing. Only 8% of Democrats think the same way. Americans are also split down the middle when it asked if Trump is handling the COVID-19 pandemic correctly. Gallup found that 50% approve of Trump's handling, down 10% from last month's poll. Approval from Republicans on Trump's coronavirus actions is at 91%, 50% for independents, 11% for Democrats. Professor Michael Levitt teaches structural biology at Stanford School of Medicine. He won the 2013 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for the development of multi-scale models for complex chemical systems. And according to Levitt, coronavirus data show that sweeping lockdown measures were an overreaction that may actually backfire. Levitt has been analyzing the COVID-19 outbreak from a statistical perspective since January, and he has been remarkably accurate in his predictions. The data show that the outbreak never actually grew exponentially, suggesting harsh lockdown measures, which have drastically impacted the world economy, were probably not necessary. My opinion, it was deliberate. It's called Control, a website dedicated to describing human traits which indicate a controlling personality lists the following: treating other people like projects, seeking to change you into the person that suits them best. They may start suggesting you dress in a certain way, a way that suits them and makes them feel good. This not only knocks your self-confidence, but after time, it'll make you question your own identity and self-worth. In a much broader way, Dr. Anthony Fauci and others fit that bill. Fauci is widely recognized as one of the world's leading experts on infectious diseases. As a physician with the National Institutes of Health, Fauci has served American public health in various capacities for over 50 years. And he's been an advisor to every U.S. president since Ronald Reagan. His manner and advice fits the classic mold of a medical expert. He's careful, he seeks to be precise, and he doesn't let the discussion run off into speculation. At the same time, he and the committee advocate caution and a very slow return to normalcy. Should anyone come forward with practical observations, he or she would be met with academic scorn. What do you know? Are you a physician? However, it doesn't take a physician to know that isolating an entire society from diseases only creates a weaker society. Those who did not contract this virus are people who did not come into contact with anyone who had it, which is the vast majority of people, and those who had a strong enough immune system. The Scientific American tells us that babies are born without a strong resistance to disease. As they are exposed to common diseases, their immune system gets stronger. If you were to put a baby in isolation, by the time the child was mature enough to be out on his or her own, you would turn them loose, they would probably die. I don't know, but it sounds like it. We understand that facts are a pesky thing. We're treating COVID-19 like it's no other disease that's ever been around in modern history. Instead of allowing people to develop their natural immunity, we're shielding everyone from the disease, almost assuring that very few will be protected from future outbreaks. Why are we doing this? Well, nobody can climb inside somebody's head and give you the answer, but looking at it from the outside, it just looks like fame and glory. I'm the expert, I know, and I'm going to tell you what experts know and what experts suggest. I'm going to be a politician, I'm going to be an educator, I'm going to be the person who's on the right side of this thing. In another article, Axios's Caitlin Owens writes, quote, "In one of the most comprehensive analyses of immune function performed to date, researchers analyzed blood samples from 105 sets of healthy twins. They measured immune cell populations and their chemical messengers, all 204 parameters. And they did this before and after the participants received a flu shot. Differences in 3/4 of these parameters depended less on genetics than on environmental factors such as diet and prior infections. Genetics had almost no effect whatsoever on how well individuals responded to the flu vaccine, judged by the antibodies produced against whatever the material was that was injected. And among identical twin siblings who have the same genome, immune system features differed more strikingly if they were older rather than younger. The findings published January 15 in something called Cell, that's all it says, quote, Cell, unquote, argue that life habits and experiences shape our body's defenses more than the DNA passed down from our parents. They compared infections which are rare to those that are common, finding the more common infectious diseases to be less prevalent than the uncommon, meaning human beings build immunity through contact with one another. Based on a new study, it's hard to say if being infected with cytomegalovirus is good or bad for the immune system. This is the coronavirus 19 we're talking about. Ultimately, it's going to depend on the individual, notes Chris Benedict, an immunologist at La Jolla Institute for Allergy and Immunology in California. Infectious diseases and autoimmune disorders are two of our biggest killers. It's always a balancing act, he says. The immune system has to respond well to infections, but not so robustly that it causes autoimmunity. For someone with an underactive immune system, cytomegalovirus might rev things up just enough to fend off a harmful pathogen. But if a person's immune cells hover on the verge of hyperactivity, cytomegalovirus could push the system into danger. The number of new coronavirus cases in the United States hovered around 30,000 a day during the entire month of April, which means that the virus has managed to spread in spite of stringent social distancing measures. And finally, author of the Non-Prophet's Guide to the Book of Revelation, Bible Prophecy for Everyone, the Constitution does not grant us rights. It acknowledges rights with which we are born. We can choose not to exercise them, but they can never be taken away. The First Amendment states, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or of abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. If you speak out against these usurpations of your rights, you will be condemned as not caring for the vulnerable. If you couple your right to speak with others in the public square by assembling to magnify your voice, you risk arrest or a fine, a hefty one in some places. Governors across the nation have issued stay-at-home orders. Many have extended them once or twice. Some have even gone so far as to threaten to slap residents with fines. But what these governors are counting on is local police departments and sheriffs to enforce their orders. Sheriffs from around the country are standing up and refusing to enforce the orders because they believe them to be unconstitutional. How can they do that? They're county sheriffs. They don't work for politicians. They work for you. You elect these people, and you elect them to serve the Constitution. They have jurisdiction over an entire county. Your city, your community is in their county. I have jurisdiction. I can arrest your police officers who are simply employees of the town or city. Two Arizona sheriffs, Doug Schuster of Mojave County and Mark Lamb of Pinal County, said they will not enforce Governor Ducey's stay-at-home order. Governor Ducey is a Republican. Both Schuster and Lamb agreed to talk with residents about violating the governor's order, but they would not arrest those who refused to comply. Even though Mojave County is home to Lake Havasu City, one of the state's most popular tourist attractions, the sheriff believes people will be respectful of Ducey's orders. We'll get compliance, Schuster said. These businesses are not looking to butt heads with law enforcement or the state. Sheriffs across the nation are standing up against laws they believe to be unconstitutional. It really is similar to sheriffs who are bucking gun control laws across the nation. You see, they took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and they're doing everything in their power to preserve and to protect their constitutional rights. And that's what happened this week while you were busy doing something else. When we come back, I want to talk to you about Michael Flynn and liberal justice. Stay tuned.